Good.
Rolling.
Yeah, we're rolling.
What's up, people? Episode 3, Somewhat Pro. My guy Alex Charette. I'm Dom Sharanson. Another day, a lot of shit to talk about. Some interesting things happening with the CFL.
Definitely.
Our guy, The Rock Johnson. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but he actually started his professional career in the Canadian Football League. It didn't last very long. I think about a month and a half in training camp with the Calgary Stampeders.
He got cut in camp, didn't he?
Yeah, it was Wally Buono. I can't remember what year now. It was Wally Buono. He was the general manager and I think head coach of the Calgary Stampeders at the time. Quoting The Rock, that was like the greatest thing that never happened to him was not making the NFL. In fact, not making the CFL, because after that he went on to pursue pro wrestling, then into his now going on $800 million professional acting career. He's made a lot of business ventures since, involved with what's her name? Is it Andy Garcia? Am I correct?
Yeah.
And together they were no, it's not Andy Garcia.
I just want to say Jeff Garcia, but that's the NFL quarterback. So I'm no help to you. I mean,
it is Danny Garcia. There's two Danny Garcias. Okay. So yeah, Danny Garcia, Dwayne Johnson. They're co-owners of the XFL, but they're also co-owners of Titans, which is a show that airs on NBC. It's kind of like one of those. It's one of those like crash course shows, one of those obstacle course type events. But I think one thing that they do differently, and it grosses I think like $250 million in revenue a year, which is a lot better than the CFL is doing, though they won't show us the books. What they're able to bring to any sporting event is sort of that fan experience, but also like the celebrity involvement. So what Titans has is for every group or nation represented in their competition, they have a respective celebrity from that country. And I think it brings an extra level of attention just to the game without like the quality of the game being that high as is. I think that's something that, Danny Garcia and The Rock knew they'd be able to bring to the XFL. And so they had recently acquired the XFL after it had folded last year. And I think they're waiting to decide when to come back with their first training camp as owners of the XFL. But the most exciting thing for us is this recent conversation with the CFL. Everybody knows the position that the CFL has been in. Commissioner has now announced to the league and all of Canada that they're looking to, what did he say? That they're looking to negotiate and find new experience or new opportunities for both leagues to collaborate. Whatever the fuck that means, I'm not entirely sure.
See the Canadian game. This is quote. But is it going to be a Canadian game if there's a collaboration with the XFL? That was the exact quote he said. Yep.
Yeah, so I think that when they say collaboration, the XFL is in a very I think solid position behind The Rock in that what they're missing is that fan support. They're missing that revenue coming from like viewership, so to speak. And I think that the audience that The Rock brings will already kind of even the playing field or bring them back up to par or what they need to be successful. And I think that more than anything, the CFL is looking for a handout. Like the CFL is looking for survival. Yeah. So when you're talking about a league that's in the States that already plays 4-down football, that has all these pros looking to go back to the NFL, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for the XFL to change their rules up drastically to meet the needs of the CFL fans that don't exist under the age of 55.
I think they also they mentioned though they want to figure out the deciding the new rules for the XFL and want to make it more exciting.
And that's something I'd love to see. I'd love to see lots of things kept about our game. I just don't see it being 3-down ball, which could change a lot of things. You got to think of like all the rules that are unique to CFL, right? We have the ratio, which is what allows Canadian players to develop their game. Not that like there's less talent in Canada, but I think that we're at like a bit of uh, a handicap or a disadvantage to start with in being the level of coaching just isn't what it is in the States. If you talk about coaching clinics, the availability of all like NCAA schools and how they give back to their respective communities, you talk about how football starts at the grassroots and the amount of money that's put into the grassroots football in the States compared to up in Canada, where most people are playing soccer or hockey at that age. There's just a lot of catch-up growth to be had. And I think that um, if we come into a league where there's no longer a ratio and you have all these guys with quality film coming from NCAA schools, and then you have like CIS guys or U Sport athletes that film is completely different. They're playing 3-down rules. It's going to be very difficult to evaluate. And I think this could really, like this partnership could really send shockwaves down to those next levels as well. Like at the university level, I don't think there's a lot of conversation going on in terms of like a contingency plan for how they're going to return to play. But I think you might see like if the CFL starts to manipulate their rules and their field sizes, et cetera, to fit the needs of the XFL, that the CIS or the U Sport rules will change as well. So this could be big. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I totally agree. Like, I don't see the Canadian game. I mean, the fans that they do have, which you said, like, are not under 55. I feel like a lot of them would be lost because they do have that pride of like, this is the CFL. It's the longest, this league, like, what was it, the 107th Grey Cup or 108th when Winnipeg won? Like 100 years over like a century of like Canadian football, like our own unique league. And to just give up those rules, it's going to lose. Those fans just going to be like, all right, I'm done. Like, just if they watch the NFL, they're already watching the NFL. So it's like those fans, I feel like will have a hard time just transitioning over. Like, oh, here's our, like, you can't even have like favorite players anymore. Like, it's not really, there's only, everyone's on 1-year contracts, switching teams. It's hard. Like, we don't have the, people wearing Ticats jerseys are still wearing jerseys from the 1990s, 1980s, when the CFL was really in its prime financially. And so with like the issues with the CFL not being able to run, and it's mainly TV deal issues, it's not, they make most of their revenue from people in the stands. I feel like the XFL is sort of the ball's in their court to say, well, you guys need us. We don't need you, but we feel like something positive could come from this potentially. And if it's an XFL North, I feel like that's going to be some death to Canadian football. Because if you think of like the high school kids, like a lot of people, like I was training some kids today, and the one kid came up to me and was just like, "Oh, like the CFL and XFL, they're going to combine. Like, is this going to be like, we're going to have like the XFL and like it's going to be like the MLS, and you have teams in Canada and teams in the States." And then like he's obviously just like in grade 10, like just loves football. He thinks it's awesome that maybe the XFL can bring some, it will be make more of a truly like a feeder league for ex-NCAA and hopefully ex-U Sport athletes to try to get into and develop the game and get to the NFL. But he's not seeing all like the differences, like, so like between the two leagues, all the logistics that need to be figured out. I mean, 3 downs and 4 downs is the biggest one, and I don't see the XFL because they're the ones with the money, and the CFL is literally, if they don't run a season this year, they could just fold. It'd be easier for the owners just to declare bankruptcy and move on. If they're not able to have any fans at all, or if you get like a loan from, say, The Rock and that ownership group. But without that, like, the league's sort of hurting. So I don't see how in the negotiation tables they're going to be able to say, well, we need to keep the waggle, which is a running at the line of scrimmage. We need to keep this motioning in. I mean, unless the XFL wants to adopt those rules. But then now you're getting farther away from the NFL, and the
Yeah.
NFL is the boss, like they're the big league. So a lot
Well,
of
that's just it. I think the XFL, like you say, is like they don't really need us. They're the ones with all the new ideas. And if you think of like the fans that are complaining about us switching to a 4-down game, that's a dying breed. You're talking about guys that have been supporting the league and been in charge of our revenue, but that plan might last for 5 more years. 5 years later, we're now relying on a generation that doesn't give a fuck about CFL ball. And so how do we make the game more exciting for them? How do we make this league sustainable for the long-term future? And I see the XFL being the answer. In talking to a lot of like the young or like the third and fourth year CIS U Sport guys right now, their plans, even before COVID started, were more around the XFL than the CFL. They all have NFL aspirations and they want to be able to show that they have 4-down ball. And I think the talent level is here. It's such a bigger conversation than just these two leagues, right? Like it's got to trickle down into how are we developing our kids at the high school level, what kind of exposure they're getting with American competition, et cetera. And all it is funding. I think that up in Canada, we might need some government support to help us. We might need to realize that like the fact that we're not paying our college athletes to play enough is a huge issue, because now kids with second jobs like over the summer, and they come into this, what is like a 4-month football season. That's not enough to compete with these kids that are playing year round and working out with footwork coaches, strength and conditioning coaches. You know what I mean? Like there needs to be sort of hurry up and let's even the playing field with, if we're going to try and meet the demands of this American game,
I mean,
but
what's that? Continue.
No, it's just exciting. Like I think we should like move forward, but like I think that there's a lot to come. It's just the start of a conversation. But I think that at the end of the day, if we want to be continuing as a league, like it needs to be a plan that goes over 2 years. Even with the existing fanship we have, a team like Montreal that fills its stands still is breaking even after making playoffs last year. It's like we've never, for the last couple of years, we haven't made enough money with the fans that exist. So to just get back to our game is simply not enough.
No, 100%. Like I feel like what my question was going to be, what did you play in high school? Like what style of ball?
Yeah, I think in BC we're the only like province that plays 4-down ball.
4-down, right? So
and that's a good point. And like a lot of the people I talk to, like they're playing CIS, but they have a history of American football.
So when
right?
I was in high school, we only changed the 3-downs in my senior year.
Okay.
4-down football. They adopted that rule for Canadian, like just to like match the Canadian university rules. So I'm just like,
I think it's a bigger problem for the fans than just for the players, man. You're talking about a narrower field, so defense becomes easier. It's more strategy based instead of like big play based, because you have 4 plays to get a first down. You can milk the clock. You can play way more run. You can employ just like a simpler strategy and get things done methodically. And I think that a lot more player types can kind of fit into that model. The CFL is very limiting in that if you're like that hybrid player, sometimes you get lost in the mix because people don't know where to put you. In the NFL or in the XFL, I think there's going to be opportunities for every body type that wants to play football, and it's just a matter of how hard you're going to work. That being said, like we have such a long way to go before we're even on the field this year. So it's kind of a wait and see, but I'm excited. I think that talking about The Rock specifically, like this is sort of him fulfilling his legacy, like he got cut from the CFL. He thought he was going to go to the NFL from the University of Miami. Didn't get the interest he thought he would. Ended up in Calgary, thinking that like every other American in this league, oh, I'm going to walk all over these Canadian players. Like the CFL is a joke. Blah blah. Comes and gets cut by my guy Wally Buono, and he had an oh fuck moment, which is like, I need to figure out my life. And I think he realizes that like his opportunity, like based on his looks and all these like the tangibles that he had allowed him to pursue a career that was film and television and make tons of money. But now having that gift, I think he realizes that not everybody's as privileged as he is, and there are a lot of talented athletes, especially like in the United States, that have that are so close to the NFL but just not making it. And the way that our sports system is set up right now is like you're either in the 1% or you're bust. And he's now creating this league that is going to satisfy the needs of so many players that are like these super talented athletes that just aren't worth that like $1 million contract yet.
Well, I think I feel like the NFL and like football around the world, like it's one of the only leagues, and like we can fact check me, but if you think like if you play hockey, you can go to Europe and make more money in the CFL for sure. Like you can make decent money there, and even like in other places.
Oh yeah, hundreds of thousands, millions.
I was gonna say like the number one is soccer. Like you have the English Premier League, and then you have Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, Division 4, and they're all pro athletes. Like get to play it year, like that's their job year round. Like Division 4, I'm not sure. You can look up how much they make. It's not tons of money, but Division 1, Division 2, like those clubs can actually like move up. If your club wins, it gets promoted to the next division, and your small club, if makes enough moves, it's really hard with like the money to like beat out like Manchester United and some like the Chelsea FC, all the big teams. But it creates this like infrastructure of like these people like making a living and living their lives, coaches and players and managers that can go from like the small level and make it up throughout their career to like different teams. Now you can play in Turkey, you can go play in China. The K League pays a lot of money. They're paying hundreds of millions to get players from these big name leagues, and it's like a worldwide system of if you're a really good soccer player and you have the talent, you don't just have this one league or bust. You can go play in Germany, you can go play in Italy, you can go play in like England, like this leagues everywhere that pay well enough. And then football is this like unique sport. It's not global, and I think the CFL is trying to do some stuff with like the global players and those leagues there. But like you can't make it anywhere but the NFL. You can't make $1 million playing football anywhere but the NFL.
We need more fan power, and I think that's what the difference is between this XFL league and the CFL is they're so close to the NFL. It's way easier for the former NFL athlete to go and play for the XFL team in his hometown, or the like who's the kicker played for the Raiders. He's now in the XFL. Oh goodness. But it's just like the example being like it's a lot easier to bring that entertainment factor into the game that's like so close to the States and so close to Hollywood, etc. The Rock being involved, it's like literally the perfect person to kind of lead this charge. And I think that like him adding the CFL to it is just like him completely fulfilling that legacy. Like you see it in Ballers, how like he has a motive in being like one of the executive producers of Ballers. Like he has a motive where he wants to like put football into a better light. He wants to showcase through like the dramatization of like what is television, but he still wants to showcase a lot of the issues that are existing within pro sports. And I think that here he's like solving the problem. And I don't know if everybody see like how deep like The Rock like really is on like his initiatives that way, but like I'm starting to see it, and I think it's really cool. Like I kind of like we talked about this a little bit before it happened. Like I had a feeling that like The Rock was gonna acquire. I was tweeting I was saying like, yo, The Rock, like, this is a perfect thing for you. Like this is like the ultimate like FU to the CFL to just buy these motherfuckers out.
Did that last year? You're asking the government for 150 mil. You're just like,
Yeah.
like The Rock, like he can afford that. The whole league.
Holy, come get us. But yeah, what else we got here?
Talking about development.
I think that bill just passed. My guy Joe Biden. I'm not gonna say my guy. He ain't really my guy like that. I got a lot of like
Mixed.
questions. Like that's the guy I want to have dinner with. I got a lot of questions for him.
Man,
But I'm gonna say Joe Biden to prove that bill or trying to get that bill approved for the stimulus checks. I think it's like $1,200 for everybody.
14.
Are you for or against stimulus checks? What's your take on that?
I'm for the people, I guess. So I mean, serve definitely the Canadian emergency response benefit when the gym was shut down.
Yeah.
The CFL hadn't figured out its CEWS payment yet. No, I definitely applied for that, and I wasn't able to work as a trainer. There's nothing I could do. I have a child. I'm paying for a household, and it's only $2,000. It's not anything to live off of, but it definitely helped. And so when things are out of your control, and it's because the government is shutting things down, I feel like the government should be somewhat responsible for helping the people out. And in Canada, I don't know the economics behind it, but I know that can't be good for the government to be just giving out free money. And then there's also like the issue with people just taking it and still working. And it's like, how are they going to have to audit 33 million people to figure out who actually deserved the serve checks and who didn't, and created more debt for the country? But isn't that what like the country's debt is for like this emergency?
For emergencies,
like,
exactly.
The U.S. has been so slow with getting money out, especially the people that were affected by it weren't the rich. We saw how much the already well-established, like rich top percentile people, they were going on vacation. I talked about this in one of the early episodes. They're going on vacation during COVID. Oh, I get to stay home with my family in my beautiful home. But the low income that need, they're living off $2,000 a month. Like they're the ones that need that stimulus check more than anybody. Oh, you're telling me I can't go to work? And at the first part, there was like the landlords trying to evict people. And then they're saying, oh, you can't evict us. Like at least they handled that, saying like you can't evict people during COVID. Yeah. So you still have to pay hydro. You may have car payments. You may have debt. You may have student debt. You may have kids. Like they're not in school. You're trying to homeschool. You can't work. 1,400 a month. Like that's they've been on 1,400 for what? The last 6 months. How are these people survive? So I feel like with the increase like mental health issues that have happened with COVID, not alone just being the cabin fever, not being allowed to go outside, just the fact that like the financial issues, the higher rates of like domestic violence, and the divorce rates were higher, the suicide rates were higher, the rates for depression and anxiety were higher. And like money doesn't give you happiness, but like for the people on that lower threshold that are check to check, like I'm already behind on rent and you're telling me I can't work and you're sending me nothing.
Well, that's just it. Like
support the stimulus check.
Top 5%, the top 5%, they're used to like they have no problem getting like interest-free loans of millions of dollars to support their like businesses that are like hurt or damaged during COVID, right? It's the exact same thing. The government's printing money. The difference being that like what this supports is that 5%, like you said, or that 0.5%. They already have their money. They're going on vacations. We're just adding to their offshore bank accounts. Where when you're giving out stimulus checks, like people that aren't financially literate, more oftentimes than not, they're just going to spend the money. So it's not just helping families; it's also stimulating the economy. Like it's kind of a win-win. And like I feel like a lot of people have like that complain kind of missed that point, is that like it's not just money that's going into families' pockets that we're printing and like it's not going back into the economy. These people aren't saving the money. It's a necessity to buy goods and etc. So in an extreme case like COVID, where everybody's in lockdown, at least like there's still money circulating, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
I'm totally for it. I think it's ridiculous that like for the 1% that like has tons of money in the bank to be saying that people that are struggling can't like have the means for survival. Like it's just like this whole survival of the fittest concept is very elitist, you know. But like it's a common conversation, and I think that people are missing the big picture. It's really sad. I'm happy that it's going down. I don't think $1,200 US a month is like significant enough. And I think it's like it's a little too late for that. Like I think that should have been happening like months ago.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
big props, like the government in Canada got on that fast, and other countries across the world were sending money to people. So I don't know why it took the states so long. Like a bunch of other countries were also giving out stimulus, so it doesn't make sense. But well, it is what it is. I think like in that one case, I can say what all the people have been saying to me. Like, thankfully, I lived in Canada for that one reason. That definitely helped. The way they got their crap together and got some money out to people who needed it. I'll stop the evictions. That was a good thing. Um, so you said you wanted to bet on something too, so we can get transition to bet on it for a second. You told me that you think there will be no masks by September, and I'm gonna bet against that completely. Um, I feel like even with the vaccine in Canada alone is only going to be available to like say we're not playing in the CFL and don't need to travel. Like we're only going to get if we want to take it. That's a whole other subject. Like I'm still in the middle about things like that. But if everyone gets the vaccine, it's only by September. So for herd immunity, it's even going to be later than that. I don't see the government lifting the mask rule till like summer 2022.
yeah,
There's not much evidence supporting that these masks are really like the breaker. Like, why aren't we putting?
that's just what I was gonna say is that like whether the vaccines are effective or not, I think that like more and more research is showing that like the masks aren't making that much of a difference in terms of transmission. So like I think that like with the vaccines rolling out, Bonnie, I don't know what's going on in Ontario, I can't speak for it, but Bonnie Henry, who's our like provincial like health minister, she's already told us that like we can meet in groups of 10 now, and by summertime we should be in like a quarantine-less summer. I think that's a stretch, but I think by September, with like the first round of vaccines being rolled out, I think they might just cancel masks. I think they'll say, hey, make sure you're social distancing. These masks haven't been doing much for the last year. It's your choice whether you want to wear them or not. Because what I noticed, and this is just like speculation, but like I've had the most mucus buildup that I've ever had over the last year. And I think it's just the mask, man. Like if anything, it's making me more sick. Like I want to be able to breathe out the carbon dioxide and inhale the oxygen like a normal functioning human. But instead, I'm breathing it out into my nose. I'm breathing it out into my eyes. And I don't think that's healthy for us. I think we need to go back to a space where, and I'm not an anti-masker. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that if it's not helping and the research is not supporting us wearing them, let's work on our social distancing. Let's work on boosting our immune systems. Let's work out every day. And like, if
Vitamin D, take your vitamin C, get your nutrition in.
Vitamin D2, D3.
All of it, all the good stuff that they took over a year to start talking about with COVID.
It's crazy how quickly my perspective changes. I was like, these goddamn people and the anti-maskers, the reasons for their anti-masking is stupid. It's like, oh, mind control.
My rights.
Don't let them be free. Like they won't let us like be free. They're trying to control us. It's not about that with me. It's about like, like this, like it's hard to breathe in this shit. Like,
yeah, if you have glasses, it's definitely like no fun. You take a breath and like your glasses are fogged up. Definitely not what you want to be doing. But oh shit, you froze. You completely froze.
all good?
What was the last thing you said? It still says recording up top, so
Okay, yeah, I think we're fine. No, just like I think that just on the top of a mask, like, you know, my mom's a psych nurse. They do their mandates or their like weekly reviews of everything that's going well, going bad. And like, despite like everybody like hopping onto masks, like the numbers didn't go down. I think that like, yes, it aids in like transmission to some degree, but I think like we need to start factoring in the fact that like we're not breathing properly. And like for someone that's like genuinely pretty healthy myself, I've found that like, you know, more mucus buildup, more like my nose has been stuffed up, and I think it's like my eyes have been kind of like achy, and it's I think it's just because I'm breathing out into my face on a regular basis. Like it doesn't feel natural, and I think that it would almost be healthier to not be wearing these things. Um, yeah, as I said that, you know, I have my hesitations. It's more of a hunch. That's why I'm betting on it. September.
Yeah, it's too soon. There's no way. No way Teresa Tam, the big lady, head of it all, is going to say, we don't need to wear a mask. No way. There's too many people that believe in it. I saw this one video, though, and it was a guy wearing like 3 masks, and he was just like in the cold. So when it's cold out, you can breathe and you see the air. And he was breathing. It was really cold. And you could just see every breath out, all the air like shooting up, like out the sides and out the side there. Right. So it's like you're still, if you have COVID, you're breathing that shit, and like apparently it's supposed to catch the droplets that COVID's transmissible on. But like I think, like you said, like everyone wearing a mask, like I go out in public and wear the mask. The reason COVID's spreading is because of people, you know, coming in close contact. So a more like
and the type of mask people are wearing. Like if we're gonna make masks mandatory, make sure everybody has a KN95. Like, you know, on film sets, they just changed that recently. Like before, you could kind of just wear whatever mask you want. We had these like nice custom made cloths with like printed logos that look sweet. But you breathe right through that. The KN95, I can't breathe in those things. That's what you're supposed to be wearing.
Yeah.
Like again, that's a question of concern for me, because is that really healthy for us? Like, are breathing these chemicals that we usually expire from our bodies straight into our eyes and our nostrils? Sounds counterproductive to me. But yeah.
You're an anti-masker.
I'm starting to be, man. I'm tired of this shit.
I mean, my ears hurt today. Like I was wearing.
I want to get back to regular life.
Straight training the kids. And my ears hurt, like the back of my ears from wearing that. I was done with it when I got home. I wash that thing too now. It's all the bacteria. It's not good for your dental health. I think I saw a dentist I know posting about that. If you're wearing the mask, just think about it. You're not bacteria in your mouth. There's gonna be a lot more. You gotta brush your teeth more, floss, all the good stuff, mouthwash. It's good. That is whack too. This whole quarantine's been whack.
Whack as fuck. That's a cap.
Astrology majors that aren't majors, the ones that, you know, I follow an astrology account. I actually have the CoStar app, but I look at it more of like a, you know, I look at it just for like a fun thing to look at. Oh, it predicts my personality. Like, oh, it's saying this about that. But there's the people out there that follow it so dedicated. So I believe in energy in the universe, and that stuff's cool to speculate on. And a lot of the tendencies in my chart, like my moon sign, all the different signs, do actually show some of my personality. Like it does match up a little bit. But am I defined by it? Do I read that and say like, oh yeah, this is me? Like no, I read that and say that's cool. Like this is a cool little thing to like think about, you know. But I don't look at it and let it define like my daily life. I don't wake up every day, read my horoscope, and believe that this partner is right or wrong for me because they're a Scorpio or they're an Aries or they're a Taurus. Like, oh, I just can't match with those people. I just think you match with people or not. And I think that's a huge cap to just dictate your decision making based on a horoscope written by someone. Like I'm pretty sure the astrology horoscope started back when newspapers were being written and someone just, read a book on astrology and worked for a newspaper and started writing these horoscopes in, and people really related to it. I'm just like, humans are humans. You and I, we're both human beings. We're both going to have the same tendencies. We all have the same personality traits. Some people show different ones more than others, and that's what makes us unique. However, if you write an article based on saying, oh, today, because you were born in January, like today you're going to have this,
Right.
this happen to you. And you read that and you're like, oh yeah, like, that is me. Like, you're going to hit a good enough, like the probability of all the humans reading the newspaper, enough of them are going to like that shit. And, and some people are gullible and we don't know what's out there really. So you can convince people that, oh, well, Mercury's in retrograde. I heard that one a lot. Oh, Mercury's in retrograde. That's why all these bad things are happening in my life. No,
Right.
How about you look at your habits and your day-to-day like efforts, what you're doing, and really evaluate your life. Don't look up into the universe and say, oh man, like the planets are just misaligned right now. So, it's impossible for me to do well. That's cap.
Right. That is cap. You hit the nail on the head. I got nothing to say to that. I'm just laughing because like that sounds like some people close to home right now. Well, a lot of people know about the recent Blake Griffin signing, right?
Okay.
And we were talking the other day. I've had a couple. It's not just you. I've had a couple people say this to me, but it's like, you got James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, Blake Griffin, all for LeBron James. He's 36.
36. I sent you that video.
It's like, that's a cap. It's also for Anthony Davis.
Yeah, it is for Anthony Davis.
Man, 22 points a year, or 22 points last year. He was 53% field goal. Some technical difficulties today.
Yeah, I don't know why. Because earlier it said my Wi-Fi was perfect, but it's obviously on my end. I just turned off my iPad Wi-Fi, so I'm gonna take my phone off for 2 just for tonight. Don't know why it's doing that.
That's all good.
Yeah. Okay, so
hey, man.
Start from right where you were talking about Blake Griffin and all for LeBron James. Because when you got hype, it's for some reason you got so hyped that
it's just shut up.
He is 36, and they are doing it for LeBron James. Anthony Davis is really good too, but that's a lot of people just to beat LeBron, man. No back-to-back championship Lakers, no three-peat.
We don't want back-to-back championship Lakers, just like we don't want back-to-back championship Celtics. You feel me? And back in that era, we forget that LeBron joined a team of 2 superstars, coming to 3 superstars to beat an old Paul Pierce.
Paul Pierce was not the issue. He had Kevin Garnett. They had a squad.
Paul Pierce, KG, Ray Allen.
Ray Allen, bro. When he switched sides, that was all you needed.
LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Kyle Kuzma.
hey,
man.
He's young. He's doing his thing. I can't hate on him. If you're
you got a squad out there. And yes, LeBron's the greatest in the world. There's no Josh and LeBron James. But it's not just about LeBron James. He has the second best player in the world playing with him too. And I'm tired of all this LeBron talk, not mentioning that Anthony Davis is one of the best players in the world. James Harden is not one of the best players in the world. He's one of the best offensively. We haven't seen him do shit in the playoffs. Kyrie Irving is like last year was everybody's like drama case guy, can't play with anybody. But now that they're successful and they got that like final piece to potentially take the Lakers, people are already setting the narrative that, oh, they needed like all these superstars. These guys weren't superstars last year.
KD had torn Achilles. Kyrie was out for the playoffs, and the Brooklyn Nets still went to the second round.
Of the East Conference.
Oh, okay, now you're taking away from the East.
I mean, I have to take
LeBron went West and
it's
still
been
won.
like that for 10 years.
KD, James Harden, Blake Griffin's on a vet minimum. We got DeAndre Jordan.
As he should be, injury prone.
Lob City's back
Nobody wanted
together.
him.
Minus, well, who was their guy lobbing the ball? Is it Chris Paul?
Chris Paul.
Minus Chris Paul, Lob City, Kyrie Irving. They're putting together. That's 4. That's like the Monstars now. Okay, that's 4, and they are superstars. James Harden, former MVP. Kevin Durant, former MVP. Kyrie Irving, NBA champion, hitting clutch shots. He's been there with LeBron. Kyrie Irving they're dropping 40, 30 points. James Harden's having arguably his best season as a player. His like no turnovers, assists, rebound. He's rebounding. You know, they're playing.
Not to mention Schroeder's.
You're adding Blake Griffin at a vet minimum. This guy's only going. He could have. I thought I heard Stephen A. Smith talking about he could have stayed with whatever team he was on. I don't even care, Detroit, and he had like 20 mil coming if he just re-signed with them. Just 20 mil.
But he's still getting paid by them. They had to pay out his contract.
No, but it's just something. There's more to it if he just stayed with them next year. In his like
but that's the Detroit Pistons you're talking about.
Do you know why? Because I want to go win the championship.
This guy's Tom Brady.
Best team. Why is every single top available free agent for next year all saying like, oh, we're gonna go to Brooklyn? I need to go to Brooklyn.
Because that's like every other player that hasn't won a championship yet. Guys are looking to win ships. They care more about winning than they do.
I'd be doing exactly what Blake Griffin's doing.
Exactly.
I'm saying it doesn't. They are a super team. You had a big three.
Not disagreeing with that.
You have these old vets. Blake Griffin's just an unathletic Blake Griffin now, compared to the old Blake Griffin, who was dunking on people with his hand on their head. He's not doing that anymore, but he can spread the court. He makes the Nets a little bit better, and it's a vet. It's a vet. He's a vet. He's a great player. He's going to be in the right spot when he needs to be. Still
consistent free throw shooter. Good defender.
Show. He may come off the bench. He may not. They're going to get rid of that other center. They can go small ball, but now it's like KD at the 4, Blake Griffin at the 5. That's nasty. And it's a vet. So you're telling me AD and LeBron, you need all those dudes to be AD and LeBron?
We do.
That's how good AD and LeBron.
There's some freaks.
It's not the
I'll give it to them. There's some freaks.
I don't think the Bucks are doing anything this year. Embiid just got hurt his LCL or something, hyperextended his knee like last night. LeBron's going to win MVP, and he's going to win Finals MVP. You can bet on that. I'm going to take the Lakers, go into the Finals again. He might be the first. He's going to do one of those, I'm 36. I'm going to do – remember when Kyrie and Caleb were hurt when he was going against the Warriors and they lost 4-1? He was logging like 40 minutes a game and dropping triple dubs, 40-point games, like keeping them as close as possible. He had nobody. He's going to do that. But if he has AD and this Lakers squad at least firing, they're going to do something.
Yeah.
I mean, they're missing Dwight Howard.
He's against offensive machines, though.
That's fine. Only so many shots can be taken in a game.
This is true.
We're going to need a young guy to step up. I'm not saying me as a Lakers fan. I'm just saying everyone just is just waiting for the king to lose his crown.
But it's just like
you need all of that.
That's the narrative. Like the narrative that people have about the Brooklyn Nets is the narrative of every team that's been in the championship over the last like 10 years. It's like, oh, they're creating a super team to beat LeBron. Yes, they are. But there's other people that LeBron recruited too. That's all I'm saying.
You know, that's the thing that my buddy always talks about Newey, right? He's always, because me and him go at it because he's literally a LeBron hater and I'm a LeBron fan since I was young, since 03, since high school, right? And he hates LeBron, and I'm just like, what was he trying to say about LeBron? He's just like, yeah, well, LeBron did start all this super team stuff when he went to Miami, and they went on stage, and Chris Bosh was flexing his dinosaur arms.
Not just one, not just two.
No, yeah, not one, not two. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
And they lost, and then the biggest thing he always wants to
my talents to South Beach.
Barea.
Yeah.
And what's Dirk Nowitzki took a shit from the Heat. So I'm just saying.
He said we needed that dude from Boston. We beat those guys. Ray, come play with us.
Yeah.
Saved his ass in the finals.
They're done. Hey, everyone wants to talk about that finals. So LeBron dropped like 11
Save his ass in the
fourth row. I know he missed that one shot, but he already had like 11, 14 points in the fourth in that game.
Yeah.
Ray Allen did his job. Chris Bosh did his job. I mean, he recruited the right players. That is the league now, and I'm actually excited to see it. I want to see superstar matchups. I mean, maybe
I wouldn't have it any other way. Brooklyn,
why?
LA.
Well, we need all these even teams with like one superstar on each team. No, like let the young guys like play in these like the young superstars that will have their time, like your Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Zion,
Right.
Lonzo. Let those guys like do their thing on those lower teams. Get some highlights in the regular season. But when the finals, I want to see the best players all playing at once. Well, like when you're playing with the all-star teams in 2K, that's a fun matchup. I just want to see highlights in the finals. I watch NBA finals basketball. So Blake Griffin and all of them, it just creates a better storyline for LeBron's legacy, which is all he's building at this point, to beat that team now.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll try to add another piece. Is free agency over? I mean, no, free agency is not over. Is the trade deadline up? I don't know if they're going to try to add another piece, but it's after the All-Star break. See, I only started watching getting into
I think it does end. I think it ends before the All-Star break, doesn't it?
So there's no more trades, but we'll see what happens. I mean, just AD and LeBron. I think AD can still.
Oh no, it's not.
AD can still make Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan his son. So
March 25th is the deadline.
You just need AD to be healthy, and Blake Griffin and DeAndre will both be his two sons, anyways. So it's still going to be KD, LeBron, and the bench. I think Kyrie Irving and James Harden, like they're just accessory players. It's going to be KD, LeBron. Like who's winning? Who's playing better in the finals between those two? Those are my two MVP candidates. It has to happen.
I mean, nobody's stopping either of those guys from getting their buckets. Yeah, I think it'll come down to everybody around them. And I don't think that'll be a straight up matchup. I don't see.
No, they're not going to match up. I'm just saying it's their teams. KD is the leader of the Nets. Like he's their player. He's their best player.
But don't be surprised when Kyrie shows up.
I know Kyrie's going to try to prove some things, but like LeBron already proved he doesn't need.
He said too much to not
in his fields.
Yeah.
Kyrie had to come and talk about, people thought they didn't like. No one didn't like Kyrie's personality. He could be a nice guy. I play with people in my career like, oh, you're really good. But as a teammate, he's doing things that may distract the team.
And I think people are salty, like being that, like, you know, how Americans can be sometimes, not to be like racist or like ethnocentric. It's like he's a very like outspoken and like witty mind.
Yeah. Well, his flat earth stuff was stupid.
So that could rub, you know, he's a flat earther, all this weird shit. So I think a lot of like the stir up has to do with like his frustration with people not really gelling with his personality too much. But everything that he's doing initiative-wise off the court speaks for itself. His game, so you think is lower still, and NBA Finals. I'll repeat it again. Nothing will make me feel better than a Game 7 win in the NBA Finals. Whack as fuck.
My internet connection in Oakville right now, that for some reason I pay $100 a month for, it's so whack that I can't handle a Zoom call to British Columbia.
Ooh, that's actually a good one. I'm gonna take that and run with it. In that, like, data plans and mobility plans are whack as fuck.
Why is my internet unstable? It's 2021. I disconnected my iPad. I disconnected my phone. There's two devices connected to my internet. Kojiko. I pay $100 a month for my high-speed internet. and you can't support a Zoom call.
I'm gonna bring it back to like 2016 when like I first started like hanging out with a lot of Americans, and like this was in Montreal, my first year there. My guy John Mincy is coming from Auburn, and he was telling me about his phone plan. I'm like, how much do you pay? He's like, $30 US.
Unlimited
I
data.
get unlimited talk and text nationwide and in Canada for an extra $5. And I have unlimited data. Unlimited data? What the fuck? Bro, I'm paying 120 Canadian for 20 gigs of data at the time. Like, that's ridiculous. Okay, let's fast forward to 2019. I take a trip to Thailand. If before I got there, I thought it was second world. These guys have unlimited data plans prepaid for $30 a month. It's like, so this shit is possible. You guys are just robbing us on purpose.
Yeah, they have a monopoly on it. They all agree. They all agree.
It costs you no extra money to have my data unlimited, but instead you choose to cap it at 20 gigabytes. And for every gigabyte afterwards, this is before we have unlimited data now. But at the time, it was like, okay, you're going to pay $120 for 20 gigs. Now, every time you go a gig over, we're going to charge you $10, like $20. It's like,
I actually had tons of like overage fees before. And guess what? With Telus now, in 2021, we're going to give you unlimited data.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, you have 20 gigabytes of high-speed data. And then if you go to that, we give you the lower speed data.
Yeah.
That's what I have right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm on too.
That's whack. That's whack as fuck. But also the fact that I'm paying $100 for just all I need is internet, because I watch all my stuff on Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, and YouTube. That's where I watch most of my things. The Zone when football is in. That's all I need it for. I just need good, solid internet. I want to be able to do a Zoom call with my boy. I want to be able to FaceTime, be on my phone, like load videos quickly. How is internet so that the box is literally 2 feet from my laptop right now? It's not windy.
Oh,
it's not. It's normal weather out there. It's not icy. It's not storm. Why is the internet? Why is the internet like this in 2021? We can have a computer the size like as an iPhone that can do amazing things.
Yep. And then, we're moving into this 5G world, IoT, all this shit. I just got a new phone that's 5G capable. It's the 12 Pro Max, or sorry, just the 12 Pro. It's not the Max, that's the bigger one. But I have 5G and it's slower than the LTE. Actually slower. Like I'm like there's times where I'm middle of downtown Vancouver and I'll switch it to LTE just so I can get my like Instagram to load. It's like, what is this? Like, what am I paying an extra $1,000 to upgrade my phone for? Like, I was better off with like the 4G phone, like, or the LTE phone. Shit is beyond me, bro. But it is whack as fuck. I'm tired of it. And I hope I'm hoping it's a temporary thing. I do think that 5G will be faster. I just don't think we have the infrastructure here yet. And so maybe I gotta wait a year or something. We'll find out.
Something that you mentioned very early in our podcast today, 55 minutes in, talking about development football in Canada and how it's whack as fuck, to be honest. Like in high school, the most I knew about route running, like for all the young kids that have like the Instagram and you can see what they're doing down in Florida, that's one of your greatest tools. Like follow Footwork King, Receiver Factory. You'll see the pro receivers, like what they're doing to work on their games and how they practice these moves and then execute them on the field. That would have definitely benefited me in high school for sure. But the coaching still at this level, like this is why I'm running my stuff, is because I want to give these high school kids a chance to maybe get to NCAA to compete. Because I remember one of the biggest coaching cues was when I was running an out route. At this point, I got to stomp the glass and cut at 90 degrees. Like that was like the comment. I understand they're not that far. It's not, you do need to create force to slow down, like a receiver. You need to hit that, I forget what it's called, but it's that drop step or like that trigger step. There's a trigger step into your break. You got to hit the ground with force. You can't be soft on your feet to decelerate when you're running fast. Mm-hmm. However, the coaching, that's what you're telling me to do, coach? Stomp the glass? How am I supposed to do that? Like, that's the cue? they're not saying that in the States. They're not telling their kids to stomp the glass. It's trigger steps, quick 2 steps, break out, like elbow back, turn your head. Just those extra words is what bring it to the next level, and we're completely lacking that. And at the lowest levels, all the way up, even like I sort of started getting like good coaching at the University of Guelph, where they actually understood football. But at the end of the day, I'll give a shout out to Nick Lewis, S.J. Green, Fred Stamps, the guys I was surrounded by in my rookie year. Nick Lewis broke down football and receiver in a whole way. The guy's from Texas, Hall of Fame CFL player, and he was doing this thing in his later years when he didn't have the speed he had when he was younger, and it was all because of this technique. And he just broke the game down in simply. It was like a 5-minute conversation. He's like, "Yo, Alex, stop running the line on the page. You gotta play the field. You gotta play the defender." Like, and that's just like a tidbit of it. Like, he opened up my mind to like, okay, like I am playing a game. It's a game. Why am I like so strict and I'm running this and that? So that alone was one thing. And he imagine a guy like that being able to coach you. Well, that's what the kids here in Oakville, Ontario, where I'm staying, have in hockey. You have this development from a young age where you have coaches that played OHL, like AHL, CHL, maybe World Junior players. Even the university, like the university is actually one of the lower leagues in Canada that you can be in. The Quebec League, got all the West teams in Canada. You can go down to the States, play D1. The coaching in hockey at the lowest level, like a 4-year-old, 5-year-old is getting high level coaching that is the same terminology. They're not saying stomp the glass, they're saying trigger step, but in hockey terms, and then learning all the skills and the way to skate from age 3 all the way through till they get to age 16 where they get drafted to the OHL if you're that good. And then you're in the OHL, now you have coaches trying to make the NHL coaching you already at 16. You go to the World Juniors, now you have maybe like a ex-Hall of Fame or ex-NHL coach coaching your World Juniors team. And then you get drafted to the NHL, you play in the AHL. There's a farm league that you can play. It's a super high level, like the Toronto Marlies. And then you get your call up to the NHL, and now you're making millions. Like, that infrastructure works, and it's clear here in Canada, and like why we have such a good base in hockey. But one of the major blocks for all, even low income or anyone that can't afford it, is the money. So if you can't access any of that coaching without lots of money. When I was young, I wanted to play hockey. All my friends were playing hockey. The only ice time for my team was 6 a.m. My parents couldn't do it. And they put me into soccer at age 4. Buy me shin pads, $20. Buy me shoes, $40 Canadian Tire. Registration, $100. Jerseys provided, Timbits jerseys. That's what they all had. It was all sponsored by Tim Hortons. There it is, $160. My sports for the year is covered. They just have to get me there. That's the price of like one stick for hockey, a stick. Right. So it just isn't accessible. So the one thing I want to get to here is how we both agreed that if we wanted to make it specifically talk about the history of hockey, even in the Maritimes, a little bit of Black history, actual runaway slaves that made it to Canada in the Maritimes.
We started this shit.
Hockey. They made the sport. So I don't know if you want to like jump in on that because you've read a little more up on like what they did in like the 1800s. But now this sport, there's not many Black people in hockey, and I'm gonna go out there on a limb and say, well, it's because it's yes, it's not affordable for you put if you gave these communities, these dense communities populated with a lot of a Black population, or even like a BIPOC total, I feel like, because the natives were like, they created lacrosse. It's not that far off. You gave them a 10-year youth subsidy, that access to the best coaches, the best skating classes from the age 3 all the way to 13. You're going to see a lot more Black players in the OHL than further into the NHL. You look at some of the Black players that actually played hockey, like Willie O'Ree back in the day. I remember reading a book about him that inspired me. He was an amazing hockey player. And you've got like PK Subban from Montreal. Like when he was in Montreal, that's when I knew him, and I watched a little bit of hockey. The sport's good. It's physical. It's violent. It's highly skilled. I have nothing against the sport, but I just feel like there's a huge block to the population to be able to play. You can pick up a basketball, pick up a soccer, like kick a soccer ball. The football is all support, like the leagues support the equipment. All you need to do is have your own 2 feet and cleats to play. But there's this one sport that is inaccessible to low income / like the Black communities, and I feel like with if you look across the leagues in the world, they are dominated by a certain types of people, and I feel like that would be the same thing in the NHL if it was more affordable. If you gave these kids a subsidy.
Yeah, the history, the term black ice refers to like the lost history of the colored hockey league, which ran from 1895 to 1925. That's a long ass fucking time ago. So to think that like black people getting into hockey is like a new concept, that like we're starting to see black players in the league. No, the reason that we haven't been in the league has been mainly systemic, and that we've really always loved to participate. If you think of I think the counter argument to, like there are subsidies that exist, Tim Hortons and all these brands like support grassroots hockey, and there are opportunities for you to hop in at that level. That's not exactly what we're talking about. What we're talking about is equal opportunity to participate at the elite level, right? Because like a lot of systems in Canada, like there's an early weed out system. If your kid's not involved at rep hockey by age 9, to enter that team the following year only gets harder. The following year after that, it only gets harder. And by age 14, people are paying upwards of $30,000, $40,000 a year for their kids to be a part of said rep team, whose friend, and you've befriended the head coach so that your son can even get playing time. The team is predominantly white. That's what we're talking about, is like being able to provide subsidies to minority groups to where like the kid has equal opportunity to participate. If he's talented enough, he has equal opportunity to participate at the highest level, not just participate, period. I played lacrosse, and I was fortunate to be middle income, like growing up, and even for myself, there was a huge barrier to be a part of those rep teams, because it's very much like this boys club. It's like, oh, like, you want to try out for the A1 team? You're not okay with like the A2 team? It's like, no, like I'm competitive. I want to be the best. And I know I'm faster than all these dudes. We're running with like basketball shoes on. I could do this shit. But it took pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and being from that community to actually get in there. If you were just like, trying to play lacrosse and you didn't have a big enough voice, like you kind of just end up on the B team. And the coaching at the B level is subpar at best. All the best coaches, and like you say, the NHL players that come back and give back to the game, they're giving back to the highest level. And so you're having like one level, which is B hockey, and you're having the A level, and the separation is just getting bigger and bigger every year. We're saying if you put some black people in that top tier, you're gonna see a lot more black people in the NHL, and you can bet on that.
100%. And you actually just hit like a nice little trigger point for me. So like I grew up, like I said, when I was really young, I wanted to play, and they wouldn't like, my family just was unable to do it at the time. Well, like my family kept like grinding. We got to a point. I used to always play ball hockey, and I rollerbladed too. And like they can quote me on this crap, but at St. Anne's in our ball hockey league, during lunchtime, we didn't do recess. We played ball hockey. Me and Daniel Corso, a good friend of mine, he played hockey all the way up, and we were playing against people who played rep. I had the top points, or second most points in the whole league, goals and assists. Me and him won. We were just dominating because I'm running on 2 feet and using the stick with the ball. Like, yep. I had my 2 feet. I didn't have to skate. I actually was like embarrassed to go. So that's one thing. I had talent to compete with all of them without the skating portion. I just didn't know how to skate. Well, in grade 8, my family could finally.
Which is an acquired skill, right? You don't grow up learning to just like skate. There's not just like ice everywhere you go. You have to be put into skating at a young age to get that movement skill acquisition. Exactly. Right?
So that skill acquisition, fast forward now it's grade 8, my family can afford it. And like my dad was a big like hockey fan. He played when he was younger, and of course he wants his sons to play. So I finally convinced him. He's like, well, you better play for multiple years because this equipment's not cheap. I'm sorry, Dad, I only played this 1 year for different reasons. However, so I do a skating class, learn to skate. I could stop. My backward skating was really weak, and like my shooting with the actual puck was really weak. but I had all the other attributes like knowledge of like spacing, spatial awareness, where the puck is going to end up, like where the play is going, the rules of the game, like how to position my body, the hand-eye to like make some plays, and the forward skating speed to be competing with all these kids, and the stop ability. I just didn't. The backward skating was like a next level of like skill. I just didn't have time to work on. I joined the house league, and we had the Star of the Sea Church in Port Dalhousie, and they had two house league teams. All the one group, like you said, with the parents and like more money, they were all put on Star of the Sea like A, like the White Wings, or I think they were the Red Wings, and then everyone else was put on Star of the Sea like Red Wings. Like there was White Wings and Red Wings. One was my friend group who I wanted to play with mostly. The other one was other people from like other schools, like not my school, not St. Anne's, like St. James kids, who I'm good friends with like in high school too, because we all ended up going to the same high school. But this is grade 8, so I'm playing with people I barely even know. And I actually ended up being like a contributing player. I won a penalty shootout, and it's all house league. But like you said, if I even tried there and going to rep, this is what would happen. So fast forward, it's grade 9. I try out for the JV hockey team because I'm like, man, I want to compete. Like I want to try this out. The speed of the game was just too fast. Grade 10 kid, literally like there was no hitting in house league. Literally like ear hold me. And I lost one of my gloves. And at that point, like I just didn't go to another tryout. I didn't even get cut. Like I was just like, I can't. There's no way I can compete. But compared to all those kids that were playing their whole lives and still in house league, I learned how to skate and all that stuff in 1 year. And so if like you're given that opportunity, and I didn't even have elite coaching. So if you give that opportunity and I ended up being, yes, a pro athlete at a different level in a whole different sport. But if you're giving the other kids that have that opportunity to get the best coaching, to get the best, like learn how to skate properly, good equipment. I had a wooden stick as one of my 2 sticks, and then a half like wooden blade inside a composite to get some flex. But my other stick is pure wood, and that's not how it goes. Like you need the synergy, like extra flex sticks. Like it's just better. It's made of like carbon fiber. And though my parents couldn't afford that, still, like all these things give you a better advantage. And it's like, if I learned that in 1 year, that's where we're coming from. With like by grade 8, if you give all these kids that don't have the opportunity to get that elite coaching and get them onto those rep teams, and even without the parent like politics, which makes it hard enough for anyone in hockey, let alone like low income, not income, black or white. If you're not in that group, it's hard to get in that group. Unless your kid's just a stud, then he's automatically accepted to the group. It's a whole culture thing. It exists in other sports too, but in this one, particularly in Canada, when the sport did start with black people doing it, the colored hockey league, it's just ironic that like why is there that systemic reason why there's not more black people playing? And I think if we bet on it 100%. If there's enough subsidy from the age of 6 to 16 to get these kids the most elite training and all the ice time in the world, and there would definitely be more black people in the NHL.
It's interesting too. Like there's always like with everything that's systemic, there's like a residual effect that's not directly systemic, but like ends up kind of affecting like the same population. And I think in hockey, what it becomes is that locker room culture. Like the hockey locker room culture is unparalleled to any sport like I've ever played in my life. And I've only had a taste of it, like I said, through lacrosse, because like lacrosse was like this like odd season where like everybody that played whatever respective sport could get together for lacrosse season. And so like we had basketball guys, we had some track guys, we had some rugby guys that would play, and then we had like the hockey guys, right? And it was like 80% hockey guys because that's like the perfect like cross training for them. Burnaby Winter, I played for Burnaby in Vancouver. And so like the Burnaby Winter Club was like a big hockey program. So most of the rep guys, I came from the North Shore, but this year I wanted to play the A1. And so like I traveled to Burnaby, made the A1 team. I didn't know I was gonna be mixed in with these Winter Club motherfuckers. Anyways, the locker room is just some country ass shit, and it wouldn't be that way if it wasn't for the systemic, like kind of like lack of diversity and culture in the locker room to begin with. Like these kids have been like doing this stupid, wacky country, like nonsense in the locker room by themselves for like 10 years. And now they have to like blend with us, and we're in the locker room, and they'll throw on their one or two like hip hop songs, but it's like I'm sitting there like literally changing and just watching these guys like, what the fuck is this?
Where am
Like
I?
I've never seen people act like this before. But it also comes from, hockey is one of the only sports where, outside of individual sports, where a lot of the participation and the travel happens outside of this traditional school system. So you have these kids, they miss school for like half the year. They don't really talk to girls as much. They spend a lot of time just bonding in the locker room as a group of boys. So like the mentality and like the misogyny and like all that shit that comes from like that locker room culture is kind of gross to me. And so like, even if like that, I think that's an issue too. Like, even if I did have those subsidies, like I don't know if I'm still playing hockey. You know what I mean? Like I might just be like that, like, depends on how early I start, right? And I think PK Subban might be one of those dudes because he came in at such a young age, right? But I think over time, like it may become like more of a normal thing, to have like diversity in the locker room. And once they have that diversity, it's equal opportunity for everybody. Best man's out there. We're gonna see like a more exciting NHL, like
Yeah,
a
can
more
only be better
exciting
for the
like
game to get the best
across
players
the board.
of all culture from every ethnicity playing. And it's just
Because
like,
it's no surprise that like different ethnicities bring different body types and different skill sets, right? So to see a game like the NBA where like the European players have their sauce,
the
like
Euro
the
step,
American players have
no group.
grit, like you know what I mean? Like that's what we need. And I feel like that's lacking in winter sports, just because like it's dominated by like very few countries.
Even on
But yeah.
top of that, like a player as good as PK, and I'm still speaking to his Montreal times, but yeah, like Bananas like taunted at him, and I think the Bananas was thrown at him, but he was called like a monkey too. I'm like, you're talking to a dude who's donated like millions and millions of dollars to hospitals in your city, and you're
Throwing bananas
calling
at
him
them
and calling him
before.
a monkey. That's not that long ago. So it's like there is something wrong with like the whole culture of things when like these monkeys started the league for you. Like they created the sport in the first place. I don't know, read some history. Like that's like
Yeah.
that's
I
like
mean,
completely ignorant. Like
even recently with BLM, right? It's like the MLB shut down, and after the NBA did, the WNBA shut down. NHL,
had some games, and then they're like, we should
oh,
stop.
this looks really bad because people notice. Like, let's stop it. See, we stopped it too. We're not racist. We're not racist. And then all the coaches that were interviewed on it, former Canucks. I don't know where he is now, but I remember one interview, and it just rubbed me so wrong because he was so all lives matter about it. Like he used every word to avoid racism. It was all about like equality is important, and um, you know I respect like the police force. I need to look at both sides of things, but what happened was a tragedy, and we're very sad for the lives. And it's like it was just gross, and you see like the contrast in leagues in even like these post game interviews. Like during that time, it was like these leagues just cut it cold turkey. Most of the coaches were consistent on like half my team is black, or the whole team, like this is a reflection on myself as like white male or whatever. This can't be the way it is. It's consistent. Too many lives have been lost and not a damn thing has been changed. And then NHL is like, yeah, well, like even the players, they're like, yeah, well, there's not a lot of black people in our league, so like it's just a little bit for us to learn. And when it happened, I called the one brother like that plays in the NHL, and we asked him like how we should act on this BLM thing. It's like you could have followed suit with the four other fucking professional leagues that canceled their games that day. Like, I mean? It's not the responsibility of the four black people in your league to tell you how to act upon BLM. It's for you as a players association to decide whether this was a injustice with regards to human rights and to call it quits or not. And obviously that wasn't important to you. Saving face was important to you. And that's kind of like what we're speaking on. It's just like, there's definitely like a different flavor in like that league compared to others. And I think it's changing. I think there is awareness, and they did get a lot of scrutiny for it, but I think it's good to bring that back to the limelight and just hold them accountable, so to speak. Is like, is it really changing, or is it just temporary, like black screens, you know? In between the lines, I know we're like kind of running out of time here. Talking about Shoe Dog, Phil Knight, founder of Nike. Honestly, not that I've read a lot of like company origin stories, but I think this is as authentic as it gets. It's really interesting hearing like the come up story, in that this guy was, I don't think in terms of his like creative mind was he any different than like any of us. No, I think that he did come from a place of privilege. Obviously, like he went to University of Oregon on a track scholarship. His dad was like a successful accountant. There's like, he came from a middle income family, and like his dad pushed him to be in the right firms from the jump, to understand what it is to know how the economy works, how to make business presentations. But where everything came full circle for him is in his consistency and his relentlessness. The story essentially follows him. He had done this business project in his MBA program. His final project was presenting on Japanese shoes, specifically how Japanese shoes were going to take over the market in America, which was a perfect setup because it hadn't done that yet. And so, he worked a couple of years in this bullshit CPA job, hated it, ended up deciding he was going to travel the world. And one of the first places he ends up is Japan. His dad had some connections in Japan, so he just met for like a quick interview, just learning about the industry. And they recommended him that he just goes and checks out the factory, Anya Suta factory. And I think it's one of the most motivating stories I've heard like in a while, in that this guy shows up at Anya Suta factory, and he doesn't own a company. He had this idea, but he kind of just ran with that like on a whim. Went into the office and asked for a tour of the facility, and like two representatives from Onitsuka, a shoe manufacturer in Japan, gave him a tour of the facility, showed him all the new shoes, and then they asked him what company he represented. And at that moment, he could have like shied away from like the challenge of like, or been fully transparent and, hey, like I don't have a company, get all timid and shy. But instead, he's like, I don't have to have a registered business to own a company. This could be my company. And this is like, I think the early 80s. So like, or no, sorry, the 70s, I think. But so he ends up going into the factory, and he says he remembers back to his room where from all the track meets he used to run, he had blue ribbons all over his room. So he said, I represent Blue Ribbon Sports in Portland, Oregon. And from then they both looked at each other, they shake their heads, and they walked him into the next room where they showed them the new line of Tiger shoes. And essentially at the end of this Tiger shoe presentation, they asked him if Blue Ribbon Sports wanted to be the representative of Tiger shoes for all of North America. And this guy had no business plan. This guy had absolutely no strategy like in place. He knew that shoes were going to be big. And instead of like just kind of shying away from the challenge or getting scared, he said, fuck yeah, I do. And he figured it out after that. And that's pretty much the whole story, is like taking the challenge on, always saying yes, and then kind of dealing with the problems as they come. That's a where like cutting out.
I'm pretty sure like I listened to the audiobook of this like a few years back, and like correct me if I'm wrong, didn't he like viciously pursue Michael Jordan? Like, wasn't he like he was like all over like just like going for this guy?
Yeah, so
I don't think that's how he recruited Michael Jordan.
Yeah, that's not quite in the book. I think that's in like other bios, but like
in Jordan's.
Yeah, I think it might have been in like the story of like the Jordan brand with what's the guy's name? The developer, Mickey something. But he did recruit Jordan. And one of the things that, like, because he had that athlete background, that's how he was able to like develop such a good brand name. Is like at the time, Puma and Adidas were way ahead of him. But what he brought was that culture to the game. Like, people actually fucked with him as an athlete more so than a business owner. And they were very casual, kind of boys club type company where he was able to make these like connections because he had quality shoes and he was partying with these guys, and because he went to Oregon, he had it was Bill Bowerman, who was like the Oregon track coach at the time. He had him signed on to help him design a lot of the shoes and like the custom shoes that they began to make as Nike, but they didn't change the name for years. At first, it was Blue Ribbon Sports and Tiger Shoes, right? And over time, they became like it took like I think it was a couple runners from the University of Oregon. They started winning gold medals, and that's when the brand sort of took off. But it's such an authentic come up story in that, like, kind of just believing in yourself as like a businessman is more important than the brand name itself. The brand name can always change. You can always adapt to the market. One thing that has to be consistent is like your drive and your kind of tenacity in the space. Like, whether you are big or you're small, it's kind of like when you're in front of the public, you're always big. You're always the best thing out there, and you have to hold yourself like to that standard and with that level of swagger, because if you don't, nobody's gonna hold you to that, right? Like, and great book. I think like there's a lot of cool stories. One thing that I thought was kind of weird is just like how casual it was to be dating somebody that's just like so much younger than you. Like, there's a story of him like going back to the University of Oregon and being like a teacher in like CPA or like some like accounting program for like undergrads, and that's how he found his wife. And I'm like, oh, that's suspect. But it was a different time.
Like, you're a big time like shoe company owner, and that's like you're picking up an undergrad. Come on, bro.
You can do better than that, bro.
Come on, bro.
But at the time, they were still in like a very small office. She ended up working for him as like an assistant.
Love is
like
love.
the business grew. Love is love. It is what it is. But yeah, it's just a interesting story. And I think that these opportunities still exist. Like, out here, we have Mark. Mark is the closest example. I think I was motivated to read this in the space where like I was beginning to work with its company Strike Movement, which is local. And Mark is kind of like that, in that like in this space where you think like there's no room for like a disruptive shoe company. Like, we have Adidas, we have Puma, we have Reebok, all these brands. But like Mark is finding a way to like make a minimalist shoe for like that extreme sport market. And his background is like all based on culture. Like, himself as a former pro snowboarder has an edge in the business like realm in terms of how he attracts his talent. It's not like, hey, we're the biggest shoe company out here, here's $40 million. It's like, hey man, like, come hang out with us. Like, I know all the best like physios in the city. I know all the guys at Red Bull. Like, I used to be a pro snowboarder myself. When you're here, these are the boys. It's a cool vibe that he's able to bring that's a little bit different than these like Nike execs now, and if you have an idea that you think is going to pop, think more about like what you're going to bring on a business end in terms of recruitment, in terms of the brand, because the product can always be adapted, but yeah.
That was a good shout out to your boy Mark.
Yeah, good shout out to my guy Mark.
I'm gonna give a shout out to just to finish off the podcast today. So ex teammate of yours, you played with him. I played against him. Wayne Moore.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So, Wayne Moore. I was in training camp in Montreal with him. I didn't play with him. Played against him from, went to McMaster University. I went to Guelph. F. McMaster. They took 2 championships away from me, second year and fourth year. That's another story. This guy, Wayne Moore, you know, we're not just athletes. Okay? This guy's like super talented artist. He's in the, I think it's Hamilton region right now, or Mississauga. I'm not sure where he's living, but this guy sketched a beautiful picture, and it's now a tattoo that I have here on my arm, the Jamaican Dr. Bird. You should check out his Instagram. It's WJMoore34 on Instagram, but he also has his WayneMooreArt.com. There it is.
See that?
Yeah, you can't. There you go. There it is, right there. Okay, you can check his page out. He has some very authentic, original pieces. Okay, and super talented, super friendly guy. Can support local artists. If you need a sketch, need anything done, buy some of his art. It's amazing. Super cool dude, and amazingly talented artist, and a great football player. He's crazy.
Put his head into anything.
Plus,
keep that head safe, Wayne.
Not everyone's going to do that. I mean, I've done it. It's not for everybody.
But yeah, I think we'll wrap it there. Had some good chats today. I think a lot of good take homes. If you have any disagreements or you want to continue this conversation, you can hit us down in the comments. Obviously, this is the Somewhat Pro podcast. My guy Alex Charette, Dom Shermanson. Hope you can tune in for episode 4. If you haven't checked out 1 or 2, go back and check those out. Some good conversations there as well. Remember, we're not liable for any of these bets or speculations. So don't come at us telling us you lost some money trying to bet on the fucking Brooklyn Nets. That's my squad. I'm betting with the heart. All right.
Like and subscribe. Talk to y'all later.